working conditions of brothel boys in the Qing Dynasty. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe. But only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And let me know in the comments where you're tuning in from and what time it is. It's always fascinating to see who's joining us from around the world, what I do here. And let me know in the comments where you're tuning in from and what time it is. It's always fascinating to see who's joining us from around the world. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You're born somewhere between a pile of rice husks and a sigh. A back alley in Jiangnan probably, though no one bothered to write it down. Your mother calls you her little treasure, but the kind that costs more to keep than it's worth. You're the third son, which in Qing Dynasty economics puts you just above the family goat and just below the bucket. Food is scarce. Attention is scarcer. Your oldest brother is being groomed to inherit the family's one viable career path, probably chopping wood or collecting taxes, whichever pays slightly less. Your second brother is the backup plan. You? Your plan C. As in, can we sell him to Madame Xiang before he hits puberty? You're pretty. It's not your fault. Your lashes are long, your skin's suspiciously smooth, and your shoulders slope in that aesthetically tragic way poets love. So when a silk-robed woman shows up to admire the neighborhood children, you're presented like a melon at market. She nods approvingly, hands your father a pouch of coins, not many, but more than you're likely to earn hauling turnips for a decade. And suddenly you're being told how lucky you are. You're going to the city. You'll be dressed in silk. You'll live in a refined establishment. You don't know what that means, but your mother is crying, and your father is suddenly interested in repainting the door. They rename you before you even arrive. Something like Little Plum or Fragrant Wind. Your old name is now irrelevant, like your opinions or dietary preferences. You ask if you'll come back home. They say yes. They say it quickly. You're 9. You almost believe them. The journey to the brothel is long, quiet, and smells like mildew and regret. By the time the city gates open and you see your new home, a lacquered building with red lanterns and suspiciously happy music, you already understand something important. You've been sold. Not traded, not adopted, not apprenticed. Sold. Like a good pair of boots or a decent pig. And the worst part? You're about to learn how to smile about it. You arrive at the brothel with the optimism of a damp towel. The building is large, colorful, and smells like incense and overcompensation. A painted sign swings in the breeze above the door, announcing your new home in poetic characters that translate loosely to House of Blossoms and Gentlemen. You are neither blossom nor gentleman, but no one seems concerned. A maid, or maybe a prison guard with better posture, escorts you inside and begins the transformation. First, your clothes are taken. Not folded and set aside, but taken. You're handed something silkier, tighter, and suspiciously fragrant. You look like a dumpling wrapped in regret. Then comes the bath. Not a warm soak, but a full-body interrogation by boiling water, and a woman with a loofah like a cheese grater. She scrubs you like you owe her silver. Hair, washed. Skin, buffed. Nails, trimmed to perfection. Dignity, down the drain. Perfume is next. Not dabbed, not spritzed. Poured. You smell like a floral arrangement that lost a fight with a spice rack. Apparently, natural scent is not in the job description. You are now expected to carry the aroma of peach blossoms, powdered moonlight, and whatever masculine allure is when it's distilled into something that stings the eyes. After the external renovations, it's time for etiquette school. You're told to smile, but not too wide. Walk gracefully, but not like a dancer. Speak poetically, but not like a scholar. Nobody wants to be outwitted by their wine pourer. You learn how to kneel, pour tea, and look interested while someone recounts their government exam scores from 20 years ago. It's less education, more theatrical training for a life of exquisite pretending. One of the older boys, let's call him Whispering Bamboo because that's his actual work name, takes you aside and gives you the rundown. Flatter them. Feed them. never correct their poetry. And if they want you to sing, for the love of the ancestors, don't sing louder than them. You nod. You want to ask if it gets better. He just stares for a long time and says, "You'll get used to it." Spoiler. You won't. You thought the worst was over when the loofah lady left. You were wrong. The brothel has a curriculum, and unlike school, truancy is not an option. Your new education begins the moment you can stand upright without dripping sandalwood oil. You're handed a fan, a script, and the knowledge that your entire future now depends on the convincing delivery of compliments to sweaty old men. Step 1. Posture. Apparently, you've been walking wrong your entire life. You're told to glide, not stomp. Float like a poem, the madam says. You try. You look more like a drunk goose. She sighs deeply and mutters something about peasants with ankles like oxen. Step 2. Voice. Yours is too loud, too flat, too honest. You're taught to speak in a pitch halfway between apology and seduction. You practice saying things like, "Esteemed guest, your presence is as radiant as the moon over Westlake," without laughing. It's hard. You nearly rupture your liver holding it in. Step 3. Poetry. Not writing it. Heavens no. Your job is to memorize and recite it as if it means something. You don't know what jade fragrance dances with spring wind even means, but you're told it makes old men feel nostalgic, which apparently helps loosen their wallets. Step 4. Music. You learn to pluck the peeper, though your instructor openly weeps every time you play. Not out of emotion, just pain. You also learn a bit of flute, because nothing says, "Please tip me," like a child playing a wind instrument with dead eyes. Step 5. Wine service. This is the most sacred of arts. You must pour without spilling, refill without asking, and always, always keep your wrist limp and graceful. You're told the proper wrist flick can earn a whole silver tael. You try. You splash wine on a customer's lap and nearly get reassigned to dishwashing. And then there's smiling. You're told it's your most valuable asset. Not too toothy, not too sly, just enough to say, "I find you deeply amusing. Please keep paying for my rice." You practice in the mirror. You frighten yourself. At the end of each day, your legs ache. Your brain is full of Tang Dynasty metaphors, and your soul is clinging to a bamboo flute for dear life. But congratulations, you're officially in training. Whatever that means. You've spent weeks preparing for this. Training, posture, flute solos, poetry about moons and chrysanthemums. But none of it prepares you for them, the clients. They arrive like a parade of midlife crises and bad cologne. There's a lot of silk, not a lot of teeth. You expected elegance. What you get is a gaggle of civil servants, merchants with delusions of poetry, and one man who insists he once met the emperor's cousin. Twice. Madame Xiang, your ever-scheming boss and part-time demon in pearls, lines you up with the other boys for the evening showcase. You're expected to smile, fan in hand, and somehow look both innocent and mildly available. You resemble a hostage auditioning for a tea commercial. The first man points at you. "This one," he grunts, like he's ordering duck. You're taken to a private room decorated with faded wall scrolls and the scent of steamed dumplings. He sits. You kneel. He talks. You nod. He talks more. You nod again. It's like performance art, except with less meaning and more foot sweat. He quotes poetry. Badly. You're expected to act amazed. "Your beauty, like spring's first rain, drips into my heart," he recites, slurring the metaphor into something that sounds more like plumbing trouble. You murmur something vaguely admiring, pour his wine, and make a mental note to scream into a pillow later. The evening drags on. You refill his cup. You massage his ego. You pretend to laugh at a joke about tax ledgers. He touches your shoulder and calls you graceful. You pretend it's a compliment and not a warning sign. Eventually he leaves. Not because he's satisfied, but because he's out of silver. You bow politely as he stumbles out, then collapse into the nearest chair like a puppet whose strings have been cut. Whispering bamboo pats you on the back. "Not bad for your first time," he says. "He only tried to touch your hair. Could have been worse." You blink. That was good. But no one asks what you think. You're now officially one of them. A brothel boy in the House of Blossoms. A performer in a theatre of illusions. A peach-scented ghost haunting other people's fantasies. And this was just the easy customer. You thought pouring tea would be the easy part. How hard could it be to tip a pot and not spill? Turns out, in a Qing Dynasty brothel, everything is performance, even tea. Before the evening starts, you're briefed on the sacred ritual of the tea set. Each item has meaning. Each gesture is calibrated to charm, beguile, and subtly distract your guest from the fact that he's spending his savings on fermented leaves and forced compliments. You practice for hours, holding the teapot by the tail like a swan's neck, pouring in long, elegant streams without looking, and smiling. Always smiling. Even when the steam scalds your wrist and you've made eye contact with your reflection in the cup and questioned all your life choices. The first real client tonight is a scholar. At least he says he's a scholar. He wears a lot of ink stains and quotes Confucius with the enthusiasm of a man hoping it makes up for his breath. You kneel, you smile, you pour. "Such grace," he says, watching you tilt the pot. Like a crane at dawn, you nearly laugh. But you hold it in, because now it's time for flirtation, the most ambiguous battlefield in the brothel world. You're instructed to be playful but distant, warm but unattainable, and alluring yet innocent. In other words, a cat, but with better posture. So you begin. You compliment his poem, which references plum blossoms and loneliness. You tilt your head slightly, widen your eyes, a classic brothel trick. He looks at you like you've just validated his entire literary career. He giggles. You refill his cup. He leans in. You lean back. Just enough to make it seem deliberate, not defensive. He sighs, sips, and begins to tell you about his youth, his dreams, and his complex relationship with his mother. You nod empathetically, while mentally counting tea leaves and wondering if your peeper string is still broken. By the end of the evening, he leaves lighter in wallet and heavier in self-worth. You've smiled so long your cheeks hurt. But congratulations, you've successfully executed a flawless round of strategic tea seduction. You'll do it again tomorrow, and the day after that, until you die, or marry rich, whichever comes first. By now, you've mastered the smile, the tea pour, the subtle art of pretending to care about a man's calligraphy. But even with all your charm, you're still a nobody. Because in the brothel, hierarchy is sacred. And you're currently positioned just slightly above the chamber potboy and slightly below the cat. At the top is Madame Xiang, supreme ruler of the House of Blossoms. She doesn't walk, she floats, trailing perfume and judgment. Her word is law. Her fan is sharper than most daggers. If she taps it twice, someone's career ends. If she taps it thrice, someone disappears entirely. Then there's Whispering Bamboo, the senior boy. He's been here since the Kangxi Emperor still had black hair. Elegant, sly, and dangerously good with a flute, he can make men cry with a poem or open their coin purses with a wink. He says things like, "We are instruments of fantasy, darling," and makes it sound profound. He has his own room, his own clientele, and, most enviably, he no longer has to pour tea for drunk butchers from Shandong. Beneath him are the established boys, each with their own specialties. Night Lotus does erotic riddles. Jade Cricket sings falsetto opera. Red Peony has an actual fan club of retired generals. They have territories, preferred clients, and corner seats at mealtime. They also have egos the size of palace roofs. You're a new blossom. Translation: cheap, replaceable, and mostly here to look pretty while being told what to do by boys wearing more makeup than you. You sleep in a shared room with 5 others, bathe last and get the leftovers from the dumpling tray. If you're lucky, you might get assigned to pour wine for one of the lesser merchants, the ones who tip in compliments and coughs. Of course, below you are the